So thank you for being here at the conference, first and foremost, and thank you for coming to our panel around hiring and retaining tech talent. I'm Melanie DellaPietra, founder of People Minded and co-founder of DisruptHR ROC. I attended last year's tech conference, and I'm thrilled to be here today facilitating this panel for everyone. And it's been great to see how this conference has continued to grow year over year. So before we get started, I wanted to check and see, did anybody see the article in the Chamber's Voice of Business newsletter last week? There was an article about new talent strategy. Did anybody see that? Maybe I was the only one that read the newsletter. Well, Bob Duffy had an article in there that I thought was a perfect precursor for today's session. And if you didn't see it, I know it's up on the Chamber website, on LinkedIn too. So Bob stated in the article that the need for talent is one of the main challenges that our region has identified in recruiting businesses and keeping businesses we already have alive and thriving. So as we move through the panel discussion today and you're listening to what our panelists have to say, I'm going to ask that you really think about those words, alive and thriving. So I kind of disrupted the traditional panel format that we're going to have here today. So I talked with each of our panelists ahead of time, and instead of coming up with questions, I kind of let them give me the answers, and then I created the questions around them to make sure that this is really, really fresh stuff that you're hearing here today. So we only have 30 minutes, and we're not going to go into some really long introductions. We're just going to kind of dive right in. But I will quickly state who everybody is, and I have it on the slide up here. So Jaime Eisenhauer with Innovative. How close do I need to be to this thing? Can you hear me if I'm here? Okay, cool. Feels less awkward to keep leaning forward. So Jaime Eisenhauer, VP of People with Innovative Solutions. Tom Carpitella with Fast Tracking Solutions. Jennifer Thistle, VP of Operations with Token. Brian Carroll, who's Managing Director with Genuent. And Raj Suchak, who is one of the co-founders of Gritseed. So I've had great conversations with all of them, and I'm super excited to have them share their secrets with you here today. So we will jump right in. So Jennifer, I wanted to start with you. Is it not on? Hello? Oh, yeah, we're good.
Yeah. It's on.
Is it good? Okay, cool. So when Jennifer and I spoke on the phone, we talked a lot about culture and the culture at Token. And one of the things that she mentioned was psychological safety. Does anybody know what psychological safety means? All right, Jennifer, we've got a room of people to educate around psychological safety. So I'd love if you could tell us what psychological safety is, and how you've created that culture at Token, and how you use it in your hiring and retention strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. So at its core, psychological safety means this idea that we're comfortable being our true selves at work. That means that we celebrate each other's wins as well as each other's failures. It means that we celebrate each and every person's quirks, what they geek out about at work and after work. And this idea that creating an environment where our employees can feel that they can be their true selves translates into a more engaged employee and a better work culture across our entire organization. So that's sort of one piece of it. Psychological safety sort of then translates in the workplace to this idea that if we're all comfortable being ourselves at work, down to the core in our essence, we feel comfortable taking additional risks. We feel comfortable pushing the envelope. We feel comfortable failing, knowing that we have this safety net underneath, and we know that we have this culture that continues to push innovation forward. Because if we don't fail, we're never going to continue to innovate, and we're never going to continue to push that envelope. And that's really at the core of what we're doing at Token. So we sort of have this idea of psychological safety. We sort of have that way that it translates across the board into how our employees can function and the way that we get work done. And then at the very highest level, it becomes a piece of the cultural fabric that we're trying to weave. And it becomes one of those core values. So when we think about culture at Token, psychological safety is one pillar of that. Additional pillars might be transparency, it might be solidarity, it might be, a myriad of other terms that you can use. But again, pulling on this idea that we can be our true authentic selves, starting with that kernel, and then sort of watching the culture kind of bloom and grow from there.
Excellent. And so Jamie, we kind of intentionally put you right after Jennifer because I know that the culture innovative is similar in terms of how important it is to your business. So you had also mentioned a great analogy. Did anybody hear Jamie's podcast with Andrew Brady where she talked about cultural gardening and that they consider the soil at Innovative to be the environment or the soil, and then the employees that are hired are the seeds. And if you need to hire the right seeds in the right soil. So, Jamie, I'd love to have you talk about that a little further and how you ensure that you're planting the right seeds in the soil.
Yeah, definitely. Can everybody hear me? So first, I want to get a gauge on the audience. Raise your hand if you are part of the recruiting process or solely responsible for recruiting in your organization. Just a quick show of hands. Okay, I'm going to look at each one of you in the eye. You are responsible for the thriving or the death of every single person you hand an offer letter to. As simple as that sounds, they either thrive or die in your organization. So when we talk about creating soil for the right seeds to grow and not come to die in our organizations, you're responsible for creating the soil. And that leads to environmental conversations. How emotionally connected do people feel when they walk into your organization every single day? Are they excited? Are they moody? Are they miserable? All of that starts with you as the leader. And as you hiring these people, you're responsible for their entire soul, their mind, body, and their spirit. So when you talk about growing this soil, you have to be extremely intentful on the soil that you're bringing to your organization. So not every seed is going to be allowed to grow or able to grow in your soil. You have to be extremely mindful of all the seeds that you're bringing into your organization. I know I'm kind of sounding like a farmer right now, but if you think of it as in very, very simple terms, it is as easy as that. And as leaders, we're responsible for being extremely mindful of the soil that we're bringing. And then when you talk about appreciation, recognition, celebrations, that's the sunlight that you bring to your farm. And that's how you help your seeds grow. And then you talk about weeding those negative things that are growing in your garden. That's gossip, that's negativity, that's politics. It's bullshit. Get rid of it. Weed your garden. Get it out of your environment. Let those seeds thrive. So all those things, if you consider your culture and your organization as a garden that you want to grow and thrive in, consider your soil, consider the seeds you're planting, consider your weeds, and then talk about bringing sunlight to your organization. Thanks for being here.
I love that, Jamie, and I think the analogies are great, right? We can relate to analogies. So the culture of the farmer, I love it. And I know a lot of times we're afraid to pull those weeds sometimes. So, yep, question? It's the Evolving Business Podcast. So, Brian, I know when you and I talked, and now I realize I have all three microphones. I felt like we were getting some feedback on that one, so I didn't want it up there sounding strange. So, this is actually good at this too. So, Brian, when you and I talked, and Brian is a partner that works with businesses. So, Jennifer and Jamie are both on the corporate HR operations, people operations side, and Tom and Raj and Brian are more on the strategic partner side. So when Brian and I talked, he has the opportunity to talk to several clients, several companies, several candidates. So we talked a lot about what businesses are doing who are winning the war for talent, and what are the businesses doing that are losing the war for talent. So anxious to have you share your secrets.
Sure. So I think the overarching thing that I'll be talking about is leaders and businesses that are willing to adapt and learn and change and do it constantly. So I'm actually going to jump into the retention side first, which which is a little bit backwards, but I'll work my way to the attraction side. So just to set a quick backdrop, these are some numbers from the, I think it's 2018 Bureau of Labor and Statistics. So overall tenure rate now, as of last year, is 4.2 years. I think that's probably a little bit lower than most people think. We're losing this? So in technology, it's about 3.2. So many of you in the room are already operating with a year less on average than the overall average tenure. When you start breaking it down by age groups, it becomes pretty interesting. So we've all heard the overgeneralization that millennials tend to job hop. And the statistics don't necessarily not back that up. The average there is about 2.8. But the myth that that's a new thing, to steal Jamie's term, is bullshit. 35 years ago, that average was 3 years. So that myth of a big precipitous drop, it's 0.2 years over the last 35 years. So the Gen Xers, which I'm a part of, and Gen Ys who look at the millennials and say, well, you're job hopping all, you did it too. So it's not much of a big change. So I think we can get past that. So to jump into some, or actually another age group, 55 to 64, average tenure, 10.1 years. So something to think about as you're acquiring talent. Another quick myth when it comes to retention. I think there's a belief that perks equal retention. And if you've got the ping pong table, foosball table, if you've got unlimited vacation, things like that, which are great things, but them by themselves does not retain your best people. There has to be a lot of other things that go with that. If you look at some of the biggest tech companies out there who have some of the best perks in the country, they struggle with this as well. Facebook averages 2.5 years, Airbnb is 2.6, Dropbox is 2. So they're well under the average tenure, and they have some of the best perks out there. So what are leaders doing to go beyond just the perks that they give employees? One thing that I see a lot of, and there's companies in this room that follow this, is they have a clearly defined purpose. It's clearly stated, they follow it, live and breathe it, and set the example by it. It's constantly referred to and talked about. They challenge their team. They challenge their team with new technologies, growth opportunities, self-development, and give them opportunities to advance in the company. And I think they build an environment of trust with their team. They give them flexible work options, whether it's work from home part-time, things like that, or fully remote work. But they put trust in their team to get the job done, and we care less about how you do it, when you do it, things like that. The biggest thing I would say, though, they start by hiring the right person off the bat. So from an attraction standpoint, the best thing I see companies do is they have a plan and they stick to it with minimal exceptions. They have a process that stresses urgency, and by urgency, this may sound crazy to some of you that have long hiring cycles. It's 2 to 3 weeks from the point they see a resume to the point an offer is out there. No more than 2 to 3 steps in the process. They're able to make a decision quickly. They have clearly defined criteria, not just in skills, but in culture and character. And I would say the latter is more important than the first. And Raj is going to talk a little bit about that. So I won't steal his thunder there. Another thing, they don't do comparative interviews. They find the right person, they pull the trigger because they're the right person. A huge thing, they're willing to take risks, they're willing to fail, so to speak, and then try it again even if it doesn't go well. That comes with things like relocating people, hiring remotely, or kind of a hybrid, coming to the office a couple of times a week. And if it fails, they learn from it and they try it again. They rarely say, well, we relocated somebody, it didn't work, so we stopped doing it. You've hired people locally that failed and you continue to hire locally, so continue to give that a try too. It opens up candidate pools that aren't always necessarily here. The last thing, and this will kind of lead into Raj, they're willing to grow talent. They aren't looking for somebody who is a spot-on 100% match in both, well, mainly in skill, but in character and what I call kind of the raw materials. They're willing to take calculated risk on somebody that is a 100% match for culture and character, and maybe a 70% match in skill or even less, because they know they've got the raw materials to build on. And you can get somebody to 100% a lot easier in skill than you can in character. So, maybe with that.
you, Brian. So yes, Brian did a great lead into Raj, who has developed a software platform that both Jamie and I have had the opportunity to see, and it's all about building versus buying talent. Can you hear me? I can.
Right.
Yeah. So Raj, when it comes to, again, kind of those long cycles and being willing to take a risk on a candidate who's 100% fit in terms of culture and values, but not necessarily fully there in terms of skill set, what is the investment, right? What are those trade-offs between waiting and taking a chance?
Yes. So first of all, thank you for having us. And everyone can hear me okay? Yeah. So just to lead into what Brian was saying, at Gritseed, we believe in hiring for grit and for potential. So we don't hire based on resumes, okay? This whole concept of hiring based on keywords and judging someone within a few seconds of looking at their resume, we don't believe in that. So character is forged through years and years of life experiences, and we believe that there are lots and lots of underemployed people in places like Rochester and Buffalo and Cleveland and Toledo. And what I mean by that, and I'll give you some examples, we have found people that were manufacturing line workers here in Rochester who are now full stack developers. We just hired a carpenter who is now a full stack developer building on Gritseed. We've found a roofer who's now a full stack developer. At my first company, we hired people that were high school dropouts and trained them to become Salesforce.com ninjas. And guess what? They're now Salesforce.com MVPs. People that worked at Wegmans making sandwiches. I'm not making this stuff up. This is real. Okay? And so the point is, if there's one thing that you take away from what I'm saying, there is talent out there. That's not the problem. The problem is the lens we use to determine whether that is the right talent or not. Okay? So it's all about finding people that have a growth mindset, because we live in a world now where access to information is no longer the problem. You see, 15 years ago, you had to accumulate all the information and then regurgitate it. You can learn anything you want to learn on YouTube. You can learn anything you want to learn on with a $10 course on Udemy. The list goes on and on. So the real question for us, for all of you, is how do you find people that have a growth mindset, that are going to learn, that are going to grow when you challenge them? That is the real question. And if you invest in talent like that, magic happens. Okay, you can keep your costs in check. You can impact your communities. You know, there's a dramatic increase in loyalty. Retention doesn't become a problem. And I built one company and I sold it after 4 years using this type of hiring model, and it really does work. And at Gritseed, we're doing the same thing. And we have other companies, ACV Auctions, RB Software, manufacturing companies, etc., that are using this type of growth mindset-oriented hiring model. So the final point is, well, how do you find them, Raj? Like, this is all great, I agree with you, but what the hell? Like, how do you do this? Well, first of all, what you have to do is you have to widen your funnel at the top. So number one is, when you have job descriptions that say you need 3 years of this and 5 years of that and 10 years of this, you need to get rid of those, okay? You need to get rid of those, because the number one thing that a job description does, it actually prevents people from applying. It prevents females from applying for tech jobs. That is a problem, okay? So you need to rethink your job descriptions, number one. Widen the funnel at the top. Number two, remove the bias from the system. Give everyone a chance to show you why they are the right fit for the job. Give them a chance by asking them very specific job-related questions. So you will know how would they perform if you gave them a chance. It's amazing what happens when you follow this type of approach, rethink the job description, and really give everyone a chance and remove the bias. Amazing things happen. So I'll keep going on and on until somebody kicks me, but anyways, I'll shut up now for now.
Thank you, Raj. No, that was great.
Okay, great, thank you.
Has anybody in the room ever taken a shot on somebody and had great success?
Please, say yes.
Hands.
Yes. Yes.
Justin,
Right.
you better be
Yes.
raising your hand. I'll give you a little secret. Justin at Innovative took a huge risk on me. I was one of those people at Wegmans, making sandwiches amongst other things. and Innovative took a huge risk on me, bringing me on to recruit in an industry I knew nothing about. So not only as employers is it great to take risks on human beings, but as the human, be ready to prove it and be ready to put your mind and your ability to the test.
Yes.
I never thought that I would be sitting in front of all of you today, but because someone took a chance on me, and then I was able to prove it through the opportunities for growth and development that they put in front of me, take advantage of those opportunities. Do not miss them. Put all of your eggs in that basket and go hard at it. Have the grit that Raj is talking about, because if an employer takes a risk on you knowing you don't have all the hard, tangible skills, but you have the character and you're a really good human being and you work your ass off, show it to them that they made the right investment and they put the risk in you, and that you prove out for the long term for them. So, you know, it's a testament even to my own personal journey that it is worth it to put a little bit of risk in someone who maybe not have all the right things on the job description that you thought you were originally looking for.
Yes, and I'll just say one more thing. Instead of the recruiters deciding whether somebody moves on to the next step or not, please let the candidates self-select themselves out. When you have 100 people that apply for a job, okay, and you get a resume avalanche, give them all things to do and magic will happen. Everybody wants to go to heaven, nobody wants to die, okay? So what will happen is people won't do what you're asking them to do. And the people that really want that job, the people that will get excited on Monday mornings to work for you and work for your company, will see the opportunity, will align to that, and magic will happen. And they will bubble to the top. And so you don't even have to select themselves out. They will select themselves out. So please, give everyone a chance, remove the bias from the system, and amazing things will happen in your community and in your teams.
Thank you, thank you. And I would just add that somebody took a chance on Jaime, and now she's leading the evolution of HR and how we think about people and culture here in Rochester. So, of course, with help of Justin and the rest of the team. So, Tom, you're going to bring it home for us. So, when Tom and I talked, we talked a lot about strategic partnerships, and I know that came up in the panel discussion up front a little while ago, that all of this is a lot of work. And hiring the right people is not easy, and it requires strategic partnerships. So, how many of you have had a negative experience partnering with an external consultant when it comes to hiring? Me as well. So, I wanted Tom to kind of bring it home for us and talk about how the partnership between hiring managers and HR professionals and agencies, so folks like Brian and Raj and Tom, and how those have changed, and how you can identify a good partner, right? Somebody who will work well with your business and somebody that you can trust.
Yes, thank you. Clearly there was a lot of hands you guys had, less than positive experiences with recruiting firms, but I think what we've seen is that it's went from, all right, here's like 1,000 resumes for your engineering opening, hoping that you pick one of them, to I think it has to be a true sense of like an extension of the company, and I think that looks like far past just passing a resume over and hoping again that you hire them. I think it looks like helping and assisting with the onboarding process. I think it has to be speaking towards maybe holding events for your clients and getting creative about how do we get the talent in the room with our clients that it's such a crazy talent market as there it goes as it is today, with unemployment being so low. I mean, you have to be a part of the strategic planning. You have to be a part of the quarterly meetings, the monthly meetings, and you have to be, more importantly, extremely transparent with the people you're working with. You have to be extremely immersed in the culture. You have to know the personalities. You have to know what's going to work and what's not going to work, because I think in today's economy, what's really working is good culture, especially in the tech world. And when you have such a strong focus and understanding of what the client needs, the recruiting piece comes too easy. And when you have the cultural side, my advice would be, do your vetting on the firms that you're talking to, and make sure that you have that cultural buy-in and the values align. Because if the values align, then it allows the recruiting firm to get behind what it is that they're selling emotionally. And when you're emotional in the process, I think people overlook that. When you're getting a new job, for the candidate, it's a very emotional process. So you have to be on the recruiting side in tune with that. And the more emotional and passion you have behind it, that's actually genuine. You actually give a shit about the people and the company. Then it goes so much farther. And I think you also have to really find a firm that can get aggressive on your behalf. And by that I mean, the harder you wave someone's flag and the more energy you put behind it, like I said, on the emotional side, I really think it's powerful when there's so many people that are happy in their current positions, that are happy in their current jobs, and they don't want to make a move, and they're not unhappy. So it's really important that you have someone in a strategic partner that can be that boots in the ground, that's waving your flag, sing your song, that can tell the story as an extension of your company. And finally, on the candidate side, I think now that everyone, unemployment's so low, I really think the people that are picking up the phones on the candidate side is the people that have the existing relationships with the staffing firms. So it's extremely relationship driven, and you should do your homework on the firms. You shouldn't work with everybody. I hate when I see someone getting, they're working with 12 other firms. Well, I don't think that's, I think it's counterintuitive. I think you have to do your homework. I think you have to find the firm that places people like you, that that sound like you, that have your experience. Like, as an example, if you're a junior developer and you're working with an executive search firm, I think you're going to be shit out of luck. So I think it's really important that you do your due diligence in the firms that you're talking to, that you have that same level of relationship and transparency that the search firm should have with their clients. And I think if you can do that, you'll find yourself in a good position. But it really incorporates, I think, a strong vetting process on both the candidate and the client side in terms of what strategic partner to go after.
So just a quick point on Tom's kind of last note there. I'd also say not only be willing, but look for firms out there that are going to challenge you, and they're going to disagree with you, and they're going to push you to do things differently. We're not doing that because we necessarily think we're smarter or better or anything at this, but it is something we truly have expertise in. We do it every single day, whether that's Raj saying step out of your comfort zone and look for the right raw materials, or firms that are trying to get you to change your hiring process and adapt and be urgent rather than necessarily speedy or rushed. We're trying to help you fill a business need. That's where the challenge comes from. You should want your partners to challenge you and push you and even disagree with you vehemently. So just to go on that.
We've had a lot of success at Token challenging some of those assumptions that we originally had when it came to the hiring and the recruiting process. And one of the things that Tom and his team continues to do for us is they are our champions and they're our first line of defense when it comes to pipelining candidates. And so having a partner that can go and speak to your culture, that can go and speak to your value set is so critically important for that relationship between a recruiting firm and a business to work. And so that has really translated for us in terms of success in bringing talent, top talent, into our company. When we talk about challenging assumptions and saying, hey, like, we want to pull from your expertise. I've had assumptions going into hiring a role that I've had to completely turn on my head, and it ended up benefiting our business. We've been able to bring in people that not only have a fantastic skill set, but have been able to rise to the challenge that we present to them. And so I can't say, as an employer who is using some of these outside consulting firms, I can't say enough about choosing the right partner, and also making sure that you're taking that advice and translating that into your business, because it does, and it has for us, yielded some really positive results.
Thank you to everybody. We have like 1 minute left, so we were going to try and find a place to have all of our speakers available to chat, but it's such a nice open environment here that I think everybody will be pretty readily accessible to talk afterwards and answer any questions that anybody might have. So I think we'll wrap it and stay right on schedule. But again, thank you everybody for coming. We really hope that you found this valuable and that you learned something new that you haven't heard everywhere else with regards to hiring and retaining top talent. So again, find any of our panelists and feel free to ask them questions, and let's keep the conversation going. So thank you.